Start recording. Okay, and so the first thing I'm going to get you to do is say and spell your first and last name and what your title is in Edgefield County.
So my name is Hart Clark, and that's spelled H-A-R-T and C-L-A-R-K, and I'm the Edgefield County Building and Planning Director for Edgefield County.
Okay, so let's kind of just start out. If you could give me just a little bit of the history. You told me some yesterday about, every 10 years you guys have to redo your comprehensive plan, and then every 5 years you have to update it. So, when did all of this start? How did all this get started? And what was the point where people started, I guess, like really starting to get angry?
Okay, so we've seen a lot of growth in Edgefield County. And in 2019, it was time for us to update and redo our comprehensive plan. The Planning and Enabling Act requires us to update it every 5 and replace it every 10. So County Council decided to hire out a professional group to come in and do our new comp plan. That wasn't all that controversial. We had a lot of public input, and we put together a new plan. Now, our current ordinances don't match that plan. So the LMO was started, and that is to bring our land management ordinances into compliance with our comprehensive plan.
Okay, so the LMO seems to be the hot topic. From the person I spoke with, Rhonda, I'm never going to pronounce her name correctly. Nowicki. I spoke with her, pretty much at length this morning, and she says that, most people know that progress is coming. You can't stop it. But they don't understand why the county council is wanting to zone the entire county. So can you comment on that?
Well, right now we have some conditional use regulations and lot size regulations, even in unzoned portions of the county. And it's a lot easier for people to know what they're looking at when you have a zoning map and you can go, oh, look, I'm zoned RL or R1 or whatever the case is, and these are the rules that apply to me. Right now, we have people who come in and they're on unzoned property and they go, I want to cut out this 1 acre lot, and I have to say, I'm sorry, but you don't meet, condition 24-108. And they're like, well, I didn't even know that existed. So in some aspects, zoning is simpler. That being said, there's not a requirement that they do that. And right now we're very much in the beginning planning stages of all this. It could transform a lot between now and then.
Sure. So that's another big point, is that this is very, very early, what you guys have as far as the LMO. And for my clarification, you were saying yesterday that the LMO, or was it the comprehensive plan? Maybe, no, the LMO, you took 8 chapters from the comprehensive plan and added to it.
So our current ordinances, the LMO is taking 4 entire chapters of our current ordinances and then pieces of 4 other parts. They're not the whole chapters, but pieces, bits and pieces, and then putting it into a single unified document. That's what the LMO accomplishes in terms of its organization. The main thing is the updating of the ordinances or the content. And that could be done in our existing ordinances as well as putting it together into a unified document.
Okay, so of course I left my notes with my questions in my desk. So just again for clarification, this current document is a rough draft and a starting point for the Planning Commission.
That's correct. So back when we finished the comprehensive plan, we got the Planning Commission to appoint a steering committee to start working with Robert and Company on the draft of the LMO. That steering committee completed their draft and has passed it to the Planning Commission, who has not yet finished working on it. So we're at the first draft, and it will change between now and when the Planning Commission is done with it. And then the Planning Commission will make their recommendation to County Council on what they think it should be. And then County Council has to look at that draft and modify it further to be what they desire.
Okay, so the planning commission and the county council, once that first rough draft was put together, they did make it public and said, hey guys, people of Edgefield County, read over this and, and then we're going to have a public meeting. Do you think it was too soon to do that? Since it's such a rough draft that parts of it, again, were cut and pasted from other places, and some of it may likely never see the light of day in the final LMO. Do you think it was too soon to do that? Or do you think that you guys should have maybe waited a little longer until you had something a little bit more concrete?
I think from a political standpoint, it was probably too soon, but really the whole idea of this is, and Rhonda is very involved, and several other people are very involved, but we need more involvement. And I don't think it's ever too early to get the public's input on it.
Okay, so one of the main complaints, and personally, again, I have a bachelor's degree in communication, and I started reading through this thing, and one chapter in, I felt like I wasn't retaining anything, and I had a headache. So, for those people that really aren't going to understand this, it seems like it's really a lot. It's a lot to go through, and it's a lot for people to understand who don't normally read or write stuff like this. So, that seems to be like one of the main complaints, is that when they go through this, they don't know what it's saying, and they don't understand what certain things mean. So, what is your response to that? And is there a plan to specifically in anything new that is added to summarize this and make it a little bit easier for the residents in Edgefield County to read and understand?
Well, I guess the first part of it is just remember that this is all of the regulations on land management in the entire county. And it is a legal document, which comes with a little bit of complexity to it. It has to be specific, not general. That being said, I think one of the biggest things that the Planning Commission will probably do to address this is take it in pieces instead of saying, here's a new draft, look at it. They'll take chapters 1 and then 2 and 3, and then they'll break it down and just look at sections of it. And that way people will have more time and smaller bites of it to look at one time.
Sure. And are you guys or the Planning Commission, I should say, I know you're not on the Planning Commission, but is there a plan to say, okay, so, this is what we changed, and highlight that stuff, for people to look at, for the county council? I know that county council within government, that you guys do have to go through that bit by bit by bit by bit, but is there a plan to do that? Because I know that's been one of the questions as well that I've heard a lot of.
So in terms of from the old ordinances to the new ones, probably not exactly line by line. A lot of it is changed just in update of language and grammatical type changes, stuff like that. All of that will not likely be strike through and underline or that kind of thing. But all of the substance changes, like what's allowed on your property, what lot sizes are, what the specific requirements for conditional uses are, all of those things will have strike through underlines for every change so that people can track the progress of the Planning Commission throughout the process. We also have the editing being done by a professional company called Robert & Company, and they also track all of those changes as well.
Okay. So, one of the things we talked about yesterday, one of the things that other people have mentioned over and over again, is that they believe that this zoning is a glorified countywide HOA where the county, once it passes, that the county is going to be able to tell them what they can have on their land, regardless of where it is in the county, what they can have, what they can do with it, how many times a year they can decorate for a holiday, and what decorations those are, the whole RV flag poles, the number of flags you can have, the number of flag poles you can have. So, it seems to me that the consensus that people believe is that this is going to happen no matter where you live in the county. So can you address that?
Well, first off, the architectural control items would only apply in the overlay districts, which are on 500 feet of either side of several major thoroughfares. And so those regulations would not apply countywide. The sign ordinance, flag poles, we do have a new sign ordinance in there that was completely rewritten just for us. And it does have some restrictions that are likely, to change and be modified. But most of your architectural controls are not applied countywide. They only apply to those corridors if that's even kept in the draft moving forward.
Okay, another thing that was brought up was, and I'm not sure because I had my list. Mobile homes and grandfathering in, and I wish I had it in front of me. I apologize that I don't. There are people that are concerned that the county is trying to phase out mobile homes, being able to bring them in, being able to stay in them if they need, updating, if they need work, or renting them out as many people do if they, move out and they keep the land. So, can you respond to that?
Yes, there will likely be some changes if the county is zoned as a whole. There will probably be some changes in terms of creating nonconformities. However, you would be a legal nonconforming use if you own and live in a mobile home. The zoning change is not retroactive. Nobody's coming to declare eminent domain and take your property or anything of that nature. They'll come in, you can continue to operate and live there for however long it is, and you can sell it, and the next person moves in, they can continue to live there and operate. If, say, the power was removed and everybody moved out, and then after a period of 6 months, then you could lose your grandfathering status. But zoning regulations are not retroactive, so you would become what's called a legal non-conforming use.
Okay.
And we will do our absolute best to try and avoid creating nonconformities.
Okay, can you explain exactly what a nonconformity is?
So if the zoning or land management rules change in your area and you have a use that would not be allowed under the current regulations, that's called nonconforming. However, if you were doing that use before that change, it becomes a legal nonconforming use. Okay, meaning that you predate those changes.
And so nothing will change for you unless you change something.
Yes, okay. Unless you lose your grandfather.
Okay. Another one of the biggest themes is high density developments coming in. People are concerned. They say, I was talking to Rhonda this morning, and she said that one of the, the main things, some people just don't want them at all, but Rhonda understands that change is going to happen and that growth is going to happen and you can't stop it. But the concern,
I speak with her almost daily.
So so she said that. So one of the main concerns, yes, she definitely is. She was great to talk to. So one of the main concerns is like the high density, quarter acre lots. The possibility of having a well and a septic tank on each lot, and just having too many people plugged in. A lot of people are wanting to keep. I believe it's currently at an acre per lot is what the zoning, I guess, is for. But they're wanting to keep anything that you put on a piece of land has to be an acre or more. So that's what they're wanting, to try to keep that rural feel. So that's another big concern. So, what is the response to that?
Okay, well, the land development ordinance that we have now, every zoned area of the county currently only requires 12,000 square foot lot size. So that's roughly a quarter of an acre. And that's fairly typical, but that can be adjusted. Zoning makes setting lot size requirements fairly easy. There are other ways to do it. We have some other regulations that can denote lot size, but currently most of the county has no lot size minimum whatsoever. So if you have no regulations to prevent it, you end up with a lot of high density. So at that standpoint, you need to create regulations to limit lot sizes.
Okay, and so that kind of leads to the question that, if there are currently no regulations to limit those lot sizes, then why at this point haven't so many subdivisions come in and built more high density stuff? What's kind of, now that things are looking to change, why is that it? I'm trying to figure out how to word it. Do you see where I'm going with this? Like why?
Yeah, I do. Why hasn't happened before?
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. So up into this point, and I would say that the main reason for that is simple, the lack of water and sewer. when you increase your density to a certain point, wells and septic tanks no longer are sufficient. And the only way to achieve that is with water and sewer services. And the majority of the county doesn't have water and sewer services. So that's been one factor that's been very limiting. And the other thing is we've just never had a push on residential growth the way we're experiencing right now. And that's not just for Edgefield County, that's South Carolina as a whole. There's just a huge influx of people, and we're getting the applications. People are selling their land for development. There's not really much else to it. We haven't seen it before because there wasn't a push for it, or because people weren't letting go of the land.
Is there anything that the county council can do to stop it if they want to? So, if they want, not saying they do.
Right now we're under a moratorium. So no major subdivision can even make an application right this minute. Now, of course, that's time limited, but they can put some measures in place that will increase the lot sizes in zoned areas. And they can also do some conditional regulations for unzoned areas. But those should be temporary until we have an updated, whether it be an LMO or just updated ordinances. And then once we have something more appropriate that people as a whole, I guess, generally like, then we should implement that instead of using temporary fixes.
Okay. To your knowledge, does the county council, they've heard people saying we want to keep it rural. That's the main, I would say that if it was the number one complaint and concern of everybody that I've talked to, they want to keep Edgefield County rural. They are afraid of it turning into a new Columbia County, a new Grovetown, a new Evans, where it just all explodes and it becomes a small metropolis. Mm-hmm. To your knowledge, what are the county council's, stance on that? Is that something you can answer?
Well, they know that it's a big concern. It has been that's been very well beat into them at this point. So they are aware that that's a big issue. Obviously, you have 5 county councilmen, and every one of them has a different opinion on the path forward. But generally speaking, I do think that they realize that that's the major issue and are trying to come up with a way to achieve that.
Okay. I know there was more I wanted to ask you. They were talking about, one of the things they're worried about is higher taxes being increased. What is the response to the worry on tax increases as developments do start moving in?
Well, obviously, you get more people, you have to provide more services, which can affect taxes. But also, the more people you have, the more spread out that tax is. So zoning is and land development regulations don't directly affect the taxes on your property. Population can bring them up or down. But nothing that is being discussed in this process currently has anything to do with taxes.
Okay. There's one last thing I can think of, because I don't want to leave you sitting here. What if I go get my notes? The last thing I can think of is there's this outcry is very loud, and it seems to be very early on in the process. So, what would you say to people who are, and there are many, that are so upset about all of this in these early stages?
Talk to your county counselors, talk to your planning commissioners, and make sure that your opinions are noted. As we have meetings going forward, participate. Come in and say, and be specific. If it's, this specific rule that you don't like, state, I don't like that rule. I don't think that should be in there. And that way we can take accurate records of what people say and apply those to hopefully a much better draft in the future.
One of the things that I have heard, again, time and time again, the more people I talk to, is that they just, many people in Edgefield County have lost complete trust in their current elected officials. So, I guess, what would you say to those people?
Not really much I can say about that. Get out and vote, and make sure you communicate clearly. Make sure they understand what your expectations are.
Another thing that that's been said is that some people believe that the small groups that were put together after the absolutely disastrous first meeting back in February were just to placate and didn't. They still don't believe they were heard. So when you guys did those meetings, how did they progress? And then the other thing that I was curious about is they said that there was a lottery with the small group, so people could sign up, but only X amount of people were going to be chosen from those who signed up, or was everybody who signed up able to come?
Okay, so everyone who signed up will be invited to a meeting. Now, we did limit the time on how long we would take signups for those meetings, but anyone who signed up will get a meeting. And overall, the LMO small group meetings have been very positive and successful. And it's more about answering people's questions than anything else. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of specific details that people have questions about. And the meeting is basically me sitting there in a conversation with them and answering the questions that they have.
Sure. I'm sure you're clear and concise on that. I've definitely learned a lot just talking to you. So is there somewhere that people can go who do have a lot of questions that have not, did not sign up in time, or they can go to get their questions answered? Is there a document somewhere? Or, if people have a lot of questions, what do you suggest that they do to have those questions answered and to maybe have some peace of mind? Because it seems to me that, this LMO is probably happening regardless. I mean, from what I've heard from the people I've talked to. I talked to Scott Cooper. It seems like there's always the chance it could get thrown out, but it's not super likely. So where can people go to get some peace of mind and to have their questions answered, to be maybe heard if they didn't get a chance to sign up?
My door is open. They need to come to the Edgefield County Building and Planning Department. They can email me, call me, come into the office. I will do my very best to answer any questions anybody has. And if they want to speak with their county councilman or planning commissioner, I'm happy to give them the contact information so that they can reach out directly.
And I guess one last thing, what is a common misconception that people have that you hear a lot that you really want to clear up, and what do you want people to know about this LMO?
Well, the primary thing is that we're in a draft stage. No law has been made yet. We are trying to draft our ordinances, and as much participation as we can get on the local level, the better. We want to hear people's concerns. We want to be able to track that information so that the Planning Commission can make the best decisions possible. So the biggest thing is, I guess, the misconception, well, this is a done deal. It's going to happen. This is what we're going to have. That is not the case. We are still in the very early planning stages of this. We have a lot of work to do before this draft gets to county council, and we want people to know that they can be involved in that process.
And I know I asked you this yesterday, but I want to ask again, about how long, I know that the Planning Commission has been sitting with this for a little while, and they have a lot of work to do on it still. So about how long is it expected that they're going to be working on this rough draft and changing things?
I wish I could answer that question, but the truth is it's going to take as long as it takes, whether it's, done in the next 6 months or it takes over a year. It'll take how long it takes. We got one side of our county, and the people call me and say, we need to get protections in place and halt this high density growth and get something done quickly. And then I've got another group that calls me and says, you don't get to tell me what to do on my property. Obviously the truth has got to lie in the middle somewhere, but it will take however long it takes to get there.
And just for my clarification, again, this current draft of this LMO has some stuff that has already been in place and some new stuff mixed in as well. I just want to make double sure.
Absolutely. A large portion of this is in our existing ordinances. and then they were updated with new terminology and new formatting. And then chapters 2 and 3 primarily are where you'll find most of the major changes, the use tables, and things of that nature.
Okay. I have to bring this up. I wasn't going to, but I think I'd be doing a disservice here if I didn't. Scott Cooper has definitely been, I guess the term would be the villain of this story for a lot of people. A lot of people are blaming him for a lot of things. Can you or will you comment on that?
I would prefer not to comment on that. Obviously, I don't work directly for county council, but I do work for the county. So I would prefer not to comment on that. Each county councilman has to do what they feel is best for the people in their district, and whether they're agreed with or not. So I'm gonna leave that to him.
Well, you said something that made me think, do you think that elected officials have a responsibility to do what they think is best for the people in their district, or do you think they have a responsibility to do what the people of their district overwhelmingly, whether it's, the people who were for the LMO aren't really coming out too much and saying a whole lot, at least to me. And I have heard from a few people who don't want to speak publicly because they're afraid they're going to be crucified. And I've seen it happen already and just in the last couple of days. So, there may be an overwhelming number of people that do want the LMO. They're just nowhere near as vocal. So do you think that that these elected officials have that responsibility to do what they think is best, or to do what their constituents want them to do overall?
Well, I think that any public official should be doing what they think is right. Now, that being said, if you're an elected official and you want to get reelected, then you best be doing what they want.
Good point. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, ma'am.
All right. I do appreciate it. I know there was a lot of questions.